Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're gonna have a look at the Maiora Alpha. This pen comes in a large cardboard box inside a black paper sleeve. Inside the cardboard box there was a pen in a plastic sleeve, and beneath this part there is an instructions manual with a guarantee card. But let's have a look at the pen in more detail. This colorway is called Costeria. It was a limited edition done in collaboration with Stilo e Stile. It also came with a special price of 120 euros back in April 2023. It was limited to 88 pieces and mine is number 66 out of 88. This is a predominantly orange cracked ice acrylic with some turquoise smaller pieces. I think the pen is quite good looking overall, but the resin had a smell at the beginning and it took a couple of months in order to get rid of most of the smell. And to be clear, the smell wasn't exactly pleasant for me. On top of the cap we see this standard Italian cone shape, and underneath there is a metal trim ring, and attached to the metal trim ring there is this typical Italian style clip with a roller. This clip is a little bit wider than the clip on the Leonardo Momento Zero, but the pen is also wider, so I think it's still very proportional. It's not too tight and the roller spins freely. The cap tapers up towards these three metal trim rings, and the middle one is actually made out of sterling silver. It's a very nice piece of metal work. Underneath there is another trim ring on the body, and then body tapers down slightly towards yet another metal trim ring, and at the end we see the familiar cone shape. The cap unscrews in one rotation, which I think is ideal. Internal construction of the cap is also quite interesting. There is a cap liner at the very bottom, and above that there are two steps machined inside the cap which provide sealing for the nib. Unfortunately, I think there might be an issue. I don't know if that's just my piece or if it's a design issue. I feel like the cap sealing is not super consistent. Sometimes the nib dries after just one day, and other times it starts flawlessly even after a couple of days. I think these steps might not be machined 100% evenly. I'm really not sure what the issue is, so take that for what you will. And now we see a standard JoWo so-called flex extra fine nib. It's made out of steel and it's stamped with a Maiora logo and then lettering Maiora Italy. It uses a standard JoWo plastic feed, and unfortunately the nib unit does not unscrew. I think the outer part of the nib unit is glued into the section, but you can still pull out the nib and feed easily, so it's not a huge deal. The section is quite wide. At the narrowest point it's 12 mm, then tapers up slightly to 13 mm, and these threads are one of the best threads I've seen on a pen body. They are so rounded that you can barely feel that those are threads and not just some texturing. The section also has a little flaring at the bottom. Overall, this is probably the closest to the ideal section that I have seen. At least for me, I have pretty large hands. Unscrewing the pen body gives us access to a converter which does screw on into the body, and it's nice to see that all of the threads on this pen are plastic to plastic. Right above this section part there was an O-ring, as the pen can be used as an eyedropper. That's a really interesting addition, but the O-ring made it a little bit too hard to screw on the barrel, so I've decided to remove it as I don't use the pen as an eyedropper. These threads are also very nicely made. The barrel screws in and out effortlessly, and I don't really have any complaints regarding the fit and finish of this pen. The pen is fairly wide, but at 14 centimeters capped, it's very similar to length to the Leonardo Momento Zero or the Lamy Safari. 12.8 centimeters uncapped, similar in length to the Lamy Safari or the Leonardo Momento Zero. It has a little bit of weight at 16.9 grams, but it's definitely not too heavy. 14 centimeters, definitely not too long. 28.8 grams, it's a bit substantial, but for me that's still a comfortable weight. Okay, let's have a look how this pen writes. So the pen is Maiora Alpha. The nib is extra fine flex, and the ink is Diamine Pumpkin. Here's what the swatch looks like. It's a very bright reddish orange, quite lovely, and the chromatography of this ink is amazing. The nib has a little bit of feedback, which I don't mind, but otherwise it's not perfect. I would not really recommend buying a pen with this Jowo extra fine nib. Regarding hard starts, no significant issues as soon as you don't flex the nib. As for skipping, there was a skip at the very beginning, which I don't think was my fault. But nothing too bad, as I wasn't flexing the nib before I started writing. I played around with this nib a little bit, and it's still not perfect, but it's sufficiently wet and it does not have really any significant horizontal vertical line variation. Let's check reverse now. It's working pretty well. It's a little bit scratchy. Now for the most interesting part, which is flex writing. This nib offers some line variation. However, as soon as you start flexing the nib, you will run into flow issues. If you limit your pressure quite a bit, and if you pick an ink that works quite well in flex nibs, it's gonna write okay, but it's not the best nib for flex writing. And as I was a little bit more careful about the pressure here, I was able to get quite some writing, but still the ink stopped flowing. Overall, the nib is okay, but most of the time I use this pen with a different nib. I wanted to try this Jowo Flex nib when I was buying the pen because they were new on the market, but I'm really not happy with it, and I would not buy a Jowo Flex nib again. Ergonomically, this pen works extremely well for me. The section is very wide, which I like, and the pen is nicely balanced even with the cap on, and it's long enough to use. without the cap. Overall, I like this pen a lot. It works very well for me ergonomically. It's built like a tank. It can be used either as an eyedropper or with a cartridge or a converter. I really like this sterling silver ring on the cap, and I like the shape of the pen. It's traditional Italian. The clip is also nicely functional, and there are no significant build issues, maybe with the exception of the cap sealing. What I don't like so much is this Yovo flex nib, as it can't really be used as a flex nib. I didn't like the smell of the material when I first got the pen. And the last thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the transparency of Maiora brand. They don't have an official website, and it's not clear what models they are currently producing. They are owned by the same company that makes Delta pens, and this pen is also quite heavily inspired by Delta pens, with the white section, white body, and classical Italian styling. These Maiora pens appear on the market and then they are gone. So if one of them catches your eyes and you can get it at a very good price, maybe give it a try. That's all from me for today. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!